Story time, creepy story time. Let me tell you about it. I moved into this house. I was working night shift, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So I didn't usually sleep during the night. But the first night that we slept here, or we were supposed to like sleep here or whatnot, my man had to work, so I was home alone. Keep that in mind. And so I was like, you know what, F it. I don't have anything to do or anything. Might as well just try to nap during the night. And so I did. I took a little nap and whatnot, right? Well, that nap was creepy as hell because I was in the house in my dream. And it was empty, no furniture, not my bed, not anything. I remember I was entering my room in my dream, and then I was like, what the fuck? And then I see a man in a chair. This man had a really nice suit. He had this fedora hat, and it was covering his face except for his like mouth, where you could see like his smile. Like, I'll never forget that smile. And he said, you're going to make a perfect addition to this house. And then I woke up. I told my man that I got a creepy vibe and everything, and ever since then I would hear small things, like really small things, like a cabinet closing or a door closing and everything. And he said, oh, it's nothing, it's probably nothing, blah blah. So I was like, okay, you know what, maybe you're right, maybe I just watched a movie or something, whatever. So carry on, right? Time passes. I've been here for a couple months. It dies down. If you hear small things, it's small things, it's nothing, bang, you carry on, right? Well, then my sister moves in because she had turned 18, and she's like, hey, can I move in? Like, I don't want to stay with her parents. And I said, yeah, sure, whatever. She moves in. She's in the spare bedroom. Her first night, she like comes out. She goes, dude. And I go, what? She's like, I had a fucking weird dream. And I said, what? She's like, some guy with a nice suit. And I was like, hold up. A nice suit? She goes, yeah. And I was like, was he wearing a hat? She was, yeah. And I was like, was he wearing a fedora hat? She was like, what? And I had to show her a picture. She was, yeah, that's it. And everything. And I said, what did he tell you? And she's like, nothing. He stood and looked at me. Like he was, like as if he was observing me and everything. And that in her dream, she noticed that he was just making his rounds through the house and everything. And then I was like, what the fuck? And then we were looking up like what generation it could be and everything. Keep in mind, this house is a trailer home, so it's not even that old. I think I have like a 2012 model or something like that. So I was like, but then my sister was like, wait, you're like next to a battlefield, or you're close to a battlefield, you're this and that and everything. Anybody could have easily been traveling and like died on the property. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I was like, let's not think too much in depth about it, it's whatever. That was just our like, because she didn't make me feel crazy, so that was like our thing. I was like, have you ever like dreamed of him again? She said no, he like only made his presence known that one time. Then fast forward, I have a coworker that came over, we had a couple drinks, blah, 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 and everything, and we were like, you know, chilling and vibing. Then she like tells me that like the next day, she's like, hey dude, not to creep you out, but like I can see things. And I said, oh, bet, cool. Like, so could my mom, because my mom was like very into spiritual stuff. And she was like, no, dude, like I for real, like I saw something. And I was like, what'd you see? She goes, there was this man in your laundry room. And I said, oh yeah. She goes, yeah, he's not like bad, but I don't think he's technically good, he's just there. And I was like, what was he wearing? She goes, really nice suit and a hat. And I said, oh, what kind of hat? And she goes, a fedora hat. And I was like, okay. And I was like, did he tell you anything? She goes, no, it looks like he just creeps around. He looks like he goes and he looks, but now he doesn't enter the bedrooms. And I said, okay. And then I told her about my dream. She goes, oh, that's crazy and everything. And then we just started talking, because then she told me she saw somebody else, which like that can be a whole different story. But so that happened, right? Fast forward to yesterday. My little nephew comes over and he's playing with, obviously, like my son. They're playing everything. He comes out, he goes, the man's dead. And I was like, I looked at my sister-in-law and I was like, huh? And she's like, what are you talking about? He goes, the man's dead. And he thought about like my man, like my kid's dad. And I was like, no, he's in Kansas and blah blah. And he goes, no, the man in the room, he's dead. And I was like, my sister-in-law there is in shock, I'm in shock. And I looked at him, I said, hey baby, does that man have a hat? He goes, yeah, but he's dead, he's standing over there. Oh my I didn't ask anything of it. My sister-in-law looks at me, she goes, what is happening? And I told her about every single occurrence and everything. And I told her, I was like, your son is the only one that has like said it straight off the bat and everything. So I don't know who he is. I don't know what he is, but I think he's about to be mad because I'm gonna move soon. So yeah, that's my little story time.
This is not a reason to ghost someone, I don't know what it is, but this girl said she was dating this guy and they were dating for like 3 months. She met him on a dating app, but it was going well, they were exclusive, all that. They were living in Mount Shasta, California, which she said a lot of people there have like weird beliefs, like fringe beliefs into Lemurians and text energy, UFOs, things like that. And I'm not saying you're weird if you believe in these things, I'm just saying these are like fringe beliefs, they're not widely accepted as truth, right? Like we all know I have some weird beliefs. Her ex, who she's calling Kay for this story, worked the graveyard shift, and he's already on kind of a weird sleep schedule because he works nights, and so they don't meet up as much as she would in a normal relationship because she works days, so they're just kind of on opposite schedules. And one of the things that they initially bonded about was their mutual respect for spirituality and different beliefs, but eventually Kay starts getting really into the idea of lucid dreaming and astral projection, and he starts wearing sleep masks and doing these guided meditations as he's falling asleep in order to induce these sleep paralysis or astral projection journeys. And he starts keeping a dream journal, which is very normal, just normal dream things, but then he starts talking to her about how he's having these encounters with what he calls the Hat Man, which is just this dark silhouette figure that wears a wide brim hat. He seems really excited the first time it happens, and he basically tells her, oh, I met this entity that's going to help me ascend and like become better and all of these things. And she just kind of thinks like he's making it up because he wants something to happen from these astral projection trips so bad. Then it progresses and he wants to talk about it like all the time, and she's getting kind of annoyed because she's like, I'm into it, but I'm not that into it, you know? Then it sounded like he was just trying to make up this like horror fantasy for himself, and she humored him, but she really didn't believe it until the night she saw it too. About a month after he started talking about the Hat Man, she woke up in the middle of the night. It was one of the nights she was spending at his house when their schedules aligned, and she wakes up and she feels like someone's sitting on her chest, and at the end of the bed she sees this tall silhouette figure wearing a hat. She couldn't move, and she was hearing this buzzing in her ears, and she heard it breathing. Said even though it felt real, she realized she was having an episode of sleep paralysis, but then she heard it say, don't look in the water, and that snaps her awake. She sits up in bed, and Kay is sitting up in bed wide awake just looking at her. She said, oh my god, I had this horrible nightmare, and he's just smiling at her, and he's like, so you met him? Now she gets back to bed, but she said from that day Kay started acting different. He started wearing these long black trench coats. You know, fashion's fashion, but then she said he would just watch her from random places in his apartment whenever she was over at his house. She would find him in the bathroom talking to himself in the dark. He started sleepwalking. Once found him outside sitting in the middle of the lawn at like 2 a.m. when it was raining, just sitting there. Anytime she spent the night at Kay's house, she would have these horrible nightmares. So she's like, you know what, I need some space. Their schedules were a little bit misaligned anyway, so she tells him like, hey, I'm gonna take some time to myself. You know, we're not breaking up, but like, I just don't want to stay at your house for a little bit. 2 weeks go by, she's still texting him, but she's just not seeing him as much. And one day he just calls her and he's like, hey, I had another experience with the Hat Man last night. He told me I was chosen. She's like, I think you're taking this too far. And he's like, no, he only shows up to people who already want to know him, and he wants you to meet him too. He tells her, oh yeah, he liked your energy the night that you met him when you were in my room. And she's like, you know what, I think that this is bordering on delusion. I think you need to take a step back from this. It doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't make me feel good. And he's like, so you don't want to meet him? And she's like, no, I don't want anything to do with this. And he's like, okay, then I really do think we need a break. And she's like, cool. A couple weeks go by, you know, they end up reconnecting. He had reached out apparently and said like, I think I took it too far. I'm sorry. I won't make this such a big part of our relationship anymore. She's like, cool. Start spending the night at his house again. He was working security. She said she didn't like tell me exactly what his job title was, but she said it was something with ground patrol around Shasta Lake where like really wealthy people live. So his shifts were usually 10 p.m. to like 4 or 5 in the morning. I guess there were a couple nights where she would stay over at his house when he was working, and he would come home and he would smell like smoke, even though his job had nothing to do with fire. Wood smoke, not like, you know, any other kind of smoke. She would ask him like, what is that smell? And he's like, oh, it's just the fog. And she's like, I'm not an idiot. Like, fog doesn't smell like wood smoke. So this one night she's over at his house. He says he has to go to work, even though he was supposed to be off that night. Like, they had dinner. It was like 7 p.m. He's like, I have to go to work at 10. She's like, I thought you were off. He's like, well, I have to go in now. She's pretty much convinced that he's cheating at this point for whatever reason. She said he had also like kept his phone face down a lot of the time when she was around. She's like, okay, whatever, I guess I'll just stay here until you get off work. And after he leaves for work, she starts like looking around on his computer and stuff to figure out if he's like cheating. She starts seeing that he has researched a bunch, like something called the Shasta Shadow. I've never heard of this. And the message, don't look in the water, which was weird because that's what she heard that figure say to her in her state of sleep paralysis like a month prior. But around 1:30 that night, she gets a text from him that just says help. There was no punctuation and no follow-up. So she calls him 3 times and he doesn't answer. She starts to spiral. She's like, maybe he meant to send it to somebody else. Like, maybe he's cheating. I don't know. She decides she's going to drive to his post at his job. She said the office was on this property that overlooks Lake McCloud. So she parks and she walks a little bit through the trees, and that's when she sees him standing like knee deep in the water. That he was in his full security uniform and he was talking to something. There was another figure in the water standing next to him wearing this hat. And she said at first she thought it was like just a shadow or a trick of the light, but she watched. And even when he moved, it didn't move. And he seemed to be mouthing something to it. She said she's just standing there watching him. Like she couldn't make sense of what she was seeing. And that's when he turned his head and looked at her and smiled. She said she was a distance from him. Like there was no way he could have known that she was there. Like they didn't have each other's location. But the way that he looked at her just chilled her to the bone. So she just turned around, she ran, drove back to his apartment, packed a bag and left. That she blocked him, has not talked to him since, but a week ago she gets a message from a different number, not his number, and it's just a grainy video of water with somebody whispering, "Don't look in the water." She said that text came at like 4 a.m, and so she didn't see it until she woke up, but then the next night she had this horrible bout of sleep paralysis where she saw the Hat Man again. She said it's continued all week. She said, "I know I'm probably just making it up in my head, but I feel like I'm spiraling and I just needed to tell someone, don't use my name." She said, "I really think there is something to the Hat Man sightings or like lore." She wants to know if anyone knows anything about the Hat Man in Mount Shasta or anywhere around it. I don't know much about the Hat Man, but if you've had an experience, if you have any words for her, let me know. If you have a spooky scary story, I would love to read it.
This teenager was so obsessed with serial killers that she wanted to become one. She idolized and worshipped serial killers so much that at only 18 years old, she wanted to dedicate her life to becoming the most famous and prolific serial killer in all of history. This is a case from Germany, and due to Germany's strict privacy laws, a lot of information from today's case is actually missing, including the true identity of our killer. So we're just gonna call her Sarah. And Sarah, unlike most killers, actually had a pretty good childhood. She seemingly had really loving, supportive parents. She got good grades, she had a lot of friends, and then everything changed when she became a teenager. And a bit of teenage rebellion is normal. Sarah started dressing in darker clothes, listening to heavier music, skipping school from time to time, but things were much darker than that. At only 16 years old, Sarah spread a rumor about herself at school that she was an S worker, like a lady of the night. And this wasn't true, but Sarah's friends started to realize that Sarah was lying all the time. It seemed like she liked to shock people. She liked attention, even if it was negative attention. And actually really quick, because I just realized I forgot to say this in my intro, I know a lot of you guys have been asking me for more or longer content, especially if all of this goes away. So the second episode of Hot on the Case is out right now, and you can find all the platforms where you can find it on my profile. Now back to the case. It was around this time that Sarah got her first ever boyfriend, a boy named Leon, and the relationship was really intense, and Leon actually ended up breaking up with Sarah because he was scared of her, and for good reason, because as soon as he broke up with her, she started planning how she would kill him. At this point, Sarah's interests, her life had gotten so dark and disturbing. Sarah became obsessed with serial killers, and I'm not talking about an interest in true crime or being fascinated with psychology. Sarah worshipped these serial killers. She idolized them. She was crushing on them like some serial killer fangirl, especially Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. He was the background on her phone, and also she had posters of him and Ted Bundy covering her bedroom. And at this point, she's 17 years old to early 18 years old, and I'm just wondering what her family, her parents, think about all this. Sarah began fantasizing about becoming a serial killer, but Sarah didn't want to be any serial killer. She wanted to be the most famous and prolific of all time. Sarah wanted to have more victims than any other serial killer in history. And she began Googling how she was going to do that. She literally made a Google search that said, what is the best way to become a serial killer? So clearly she's no evil genius. In April of 2021, she bought a very large 12-inch sharp weapon and then began hunting for her first victims. Sarah signed up for a bunch of dating apps and sugar baby sites under the username Domina Cherry. Her bio on these dating sites was that she was a teen girl who had never slept with anyone before, but was also into really rough stuff. And she planned to meet a bunch of men this way because at this point she decided she really just hated men and wanted to kill all men after her breakup with Leon. And she planned to meet men this way and then lure them into a secluded area where she would end their lives. Because of the certain bio that Domina Cherry chose for her dating sites and her sugar baby sites, she started getting a lot of attention. She actually got over 220 messages from men on these sites in less than 3 3 days. Sarah had a date planned for May 3rd, May 4th, and May 5th, with the plan to kill each man on each date 3 days in a row. But her first victim that Sarah chose was a 39-year-old man named Zayed. And he messaged her on May 1st, and they planned to meet up that very night. Sarah had already told a handful of her friends about her plans to become this terrible serial killer, but right before she planned to meet up with Zayed, Sarah actually left a voicemail for one of her friends, a girl named Francesca, saying that she was about to kill her first one and to wish her good luck. And I know Sarah is known for being a liar at this point, but when Francesca gets that voicemail from Sarah, she doesn't go to the police, she doesn't tell anyone. All Francesca does is make a Google search of her own. Can I get in trouble if I know about a murder? The answer is yes. Zayed picked Sarah up around 8 p.m. and she directed him to a remote cabin that her family owned in the woods that actually did not exist. And once Sarah had Zayed turn onto a secluded dirt road, she took out her 12-inch sharp weapon and plunged it into his neck. Zayed actually attempted to fight off Sarah, and he was able to hold his wound to stop the bleeding, and he just took off. He ran towards the main road where a car stopped. They helped him a little bit because the person in the car was actually a nurse, and then they called the ambulance. The ambulance came and rushed him to the hospital. Meanwhile, Sarah is also panicking, and she also ran away towards the nearest town because Sarah didn't expect Zayed to fight back. She just thought that he would automatically die. Sarah ran all the way to a nearby town, and she's looking completely disheveled. She's covered in blood, and she's just whispering to herself, I'm a killer. I'm a murderer. So onlookers in the town called 911, obviously. Sarah was arrested and taken into police custody 30 minutes after attacking Zayed. And I find it so funny, well, not funny because she's a killer, but you know what I mean, that Sarah wanted to be this prolific serial killer that never got caught. And she was gonna have the most victims of any serial killer ever. And she got caught 30 minutes later, a half hour later. And I call Sarah a killer because although the hospital did as much as they could, the damage that Sarah did to Zayed was just far too much, and he did pass away surrounded by his family. And Zayed has definitely been scrutinized in his case for his decision to want to meet up with an 18-year-old girl. But Zayed's loved ones say that Zayed was a very good man. He was not the type to look for hookups. And at the time of his death, he was looking for a long-term relationship and to settle down. And Sarah has never shown remorse once, and actually has only ever felt bad for herself because she got caught too early and didn't kill more men. And behind bars, Sarah actually tried to get her mom to kill her ex-boyfriend Leon because that was her main target all along. Her mom said no, by the way. I don't think I made that clear. Her mom said she would not do that. And due to Sarah's young age, she received no prison time and was actually only sentenced to 12 years in a psychiatric hospital, and she could be released when she's 31 years old, which honestly really, really terrifies me because I think Sarah is a scary, scary girl and a danger to society. And as for Sarah's friend Francesca, who got that voicemail and knew that Sarah planned to kill Zayed, she was arrested and was facing 5 years in prison, but the charges were dropped. And that's all I have for today's case. Hope you guys all had a very happy new year, happy holidays, and I hope you guys know that you guys were truly one of the biggest blessings of my 2024. Make sure you guys all check out the second episode of Hot on the Case, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Love you.
6 years old now. My father died at 7.5. I don't want to live in a hole anymore.
One of the scariest things that ever happened to me while babysitting, story time. Now, I was 15. I've been babysitting for a few years at this point, so I had a lot of experience with kids. They love me. Well, a family friend asked if I would go babysit their 7-year-old son for a couple of days while they went out of town to Myrtle Beach, so I said sure, that was great money for me. So the parents put their bags in the car, they showed me where everything is. Now, his mom made it clear to me that he has a very active imagination and that because his daddy let him watch horror movies the week prior, he's been having nightmares and making things up, saying that he's been seeing stuff around the house that's not there. So they get their stuff in the car, they give their son a kiss, and they leave. So I'm flipping through all the satellite channels, checking out different shows, eating popcorn, little boy's playing with his toys, drinking his little juicy juice, and we're just having a good time. So I go in the kitchen to put a frozen pizza in the oven, and all of a sudden, this little boy comes flying out the living room, running up to me, and then wraps around my leg, just looking in the living room and then looking at me, back and forth. I said, "Damn, son, are you okay? What happened?" He said, "She's in there, she's in there." I said, "Who's in there?" He said, "Her," but I didn't see nothing. And before I can push him any further, he walks over and sits in front of the TV and starts ignoring me. We're sitting on the couch watching TV, and their couch was in the middle of the room, so you could walk around it. Well, this little boy starts looking behind the couch and then back at the TV. So I start looking back behind us. It's like a natural reaction when you see somebody else doing that, you start doing it. The more he did this, the more I felt like somebody was standing behind us, but I don't see anything. So I get up and walk across the room, and from there I can see the hallway, and for a second, something stood out to me. At the end of the hallway, it looked like someone was peeking around the corner like this. But when I cut the light on, it was gone, so I thought my mom was playing tricks on me. My anxiety's peaking, so I'm like, okay, it's the first time you've been left alone in someone else's house. Calm down, go take a shower and go to bed. But while I'm taking a shower, I get the weirdest feeling like somebody's standing outside of the shower curtain. Now, they had a big-ass bathroom, so I was like, dude, it's a new place, it's a big bathroom, you're not used to this. Just stop freaking out. But I have to keep sticking my head out the shower curtain to make sure nobody's there because I'm getting that vibe like somebody is there. So I peek out the shower again and bam, this kid is standing in the doorway crying. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "It's gonna get me. It's in there. I just saw it. Can I stay here with you? I'm scared." I said, "Yes, stay right there. Just turn the other way." And then I dry off and get dressed in the shower so he can't see me. Now it's about 11 o'clock at this point and he's still wide awake. So we sit there and talk for a little while. We play with Legos, Play-Doh. I'm just trying to wear him out so he'll go to sleep. Well, finally around 2 a.m., he falls asleep. Now, it was already so late, I didn't have time to unpack my clothes, so I just get in the bed and I go to sleep. About 10 minutes later, I hear this youngin' screaming again. Before I can even get out of the bed, I hear him thump, 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 and he's already running into my room, jumps into bed with me. He's screaming to the top of his lungs, "She's there in my room, behind the door. She's gonna get me if I'm alone. Please don't make me go back in there." So we're laying there in the bed together, and he says, "I know you think I'm making stuff up. I promise you I'm not. She was there. I saw her." I said, "Honey, I believe you. It's okay. Just relax and close your eyes and start taking some deep breaths." This child has one hell of a grip on me. Like, he's wrapped around me like a python, so I could tell he was really scared. Like, he really thought something was going to snatch his ass off that bed. So I just held him and hoped that maybe he would calm down. Now, I know a lot of you would just tell these kids to hush and go to bed, but I'm not like that. I went through the same thing as a child. I would see things that were not there, and nobody else believed me. So I wanted him to know that I believed him and I was protecting him. So I reached over to the nightstand and I tapped that old school touch lamp 3 times and put it on the brightest setting so it lit up the room. That way we would feel more safer and we'd get some sleep. Then I start hearing some distant thunder, and then it starts pouring rain. I think, oh, well, that sounds relaxing. So because of that storm, my ass knocked out. I was doing some good sleeping until about 30-40 minutes later. That was when I abruptly woke up to the bed shaking. It felt like a small tremor, like a little earthquake. So I'm trying to get my eyes adjusted and wake up and figure out, why is the bed shaking? Apparently the storm knocked the power out because it was pitch black dark in that room, and the only time I could see anything was when the lightning struck. Well, once my head gets adjusted, I start hearing a noise like chattering of teeth. I'm laying there trying to figure out what the hell is that noise and what is shaking the bed. And that's when I look over and I see the little boy is sitting up on the other side of the bed with his hands holding the cover, and it's him shaking the bed. He's shaking that hard. And that chattering sound I heard was coming from his teeth. He was sitting here holding the covers with his eyes wide open and going, "Are you okay?" Because I thought he was having a seizure, but when I looked at him, his eyes darted over to mine, and I realized he was awake. He was so scared. Like, he couldn't move. He was frozen, shaking and chattering. I'm like, well, if he's not having a seizure, what is wrong with him? And that's when it clicks. He's sitting here staring at the door, so I look at the door. Y'all, let me tell you, in that moment, when that lightning flashed, I damn near shit my pants. It scared me so bad. Have you ever been so scared that your hands and arms and legs start tingling, they damn near go numb? When I looked at that bedroom door, there was someone's head peeking around the door like this, and you could only see their eyes. And when the lightning stopped flashing, I couldn't see anything anymore. It was complete darkness. That was when it really hit me. Holy crap, we're not alone. There's someone else in the house, and they're standing right there. But what really freaked me out was every time the lightning would strike, I could see more of that person's face. Like, it started like this, and then this, and this, and then I could see their actual mouth. This person was smiling ear to ear. I could barely take a breath in. All I could think was, what the hell is that thing? Then, of course, the lightning stopped flashing, so for a few seconds, it was completely dark, and I had that feeling again like someone was watching us and getting closer, and closer, and I was starting to panic. And when lightning struck a few seconds later, I could tell they were getting closer because now this motherfucker, person, thing, or whatever, was now at the foot of the bed, peeking over like this, staring at us. At this point, my damn teeth were chattering. All I could hear was between the both of us. So I pulled that little boy up on my lap in my arms as tight as I could because I didn't want whatever it was to try to snatch him out of my arms, and I held him real tight. So now when the lightning flashed, we could see its whole face peeking over the bed, smiling, looking right at us. So that was when fight or flight kicked in for me, and I remember the dad telling me that he'd put a loaded pistol in the nightstand and behind the headboard of this bed, so I start reaching around for it. And for some reason, my gut was telling me, you better keep your eyes on this thing. Every time the lightning strikes, pinpoint where it is with your eyes and don't take your eyes off or it's gonna jump. Reaching, trying to multitask, keep my eyes on it, hold the little boy, and feel around for this pew-pew, and I finally feel it, and I snatch it out of that holster and I hold it up. When the lightning struck, I pointed at this thing. I said, if you take another step, I'm gonna blow you into the next room. Get out and leave now. In that moment, something happened. I don't know what it was, but I could feel me looking into it and it looking into me, and that lightning flashed, and then all of a sudden the power cut back on. And no lie, as soon as the power came on, it was gone. I snatched him up out of the bed, grabbed that pew-pew, and ran to the kitchen and called 911. I stayed on the phone with them, the police came, and then I called the parents. I put the cop on the phone, they're talking, and then they tell the cop that they're not coming back until Sunday. Even though we're telling them we think there's an intruder in the house and their child's here, they don't give a shit. They're not coming home. They think it's our imagination playing tricks on us because the power went out and we're getting freaked out with the storm and everything. So I made it very clear I was not staying in their house another minute, and I was going to take their child back to my family's house, and that's where we would be. And they said, okay, fine, we'll see you on Sunday. So I asked the little boy if that was the first time he saw this thing, and he said no. He'd been seeing it for months, but this was the first time it got that close. Now I knew he'd have to go back to that house, so the next day me and my cousin went over and cleansed the entire house, hoping it would help.
I had to turn on all my lights after reading this story. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and today I'm going to be talking about a story that I've been kind of putting off making the video for. And a huge driving factor on this, and now I'm going to be fully transparent about this. I'm not a fan of making videos about demonic things or demons specifically because every single time I've made a video, whether it's my personal experience or if it's someone else's, I hear things in either the background or in the audio, and I have to reshoot it, something, every single time. I've also had instances where my dogs are growling at things that are not there, so you get the gist on why I'm a little hesitant to make videos about demonic things. But without further ado, let's get into it. This story comes from Lexi, who lives in West Virginia and lives in a very haunted house. She says that the hauntings started around the time when she was 6. Just for context purposes, she was 4 when her parents got a divorce, and her mom started seeing this man when she was around 6 years old, and shortly after, all of these hauntings started. And at first it was small occurrences, like her mom telling her to pick up her toys, so she would do so, and when they would come back, the toys would be scattered all across the floor. And she mentions during these instances, her mom and her both were afraid because they both knew that it was almost impossible for these things to be happening. But they continued to brush off these little noises, these little occurrences, because they could be coincidental. And Lexi says that this continued for 2 years before her mom's boyfriend moved in, and his parents actually lived down the street from Lexi's mom, where all of this stuff is occurring. And one night, Lexi, her mom, and her mom's boyfriend go down to his parents' house to have dinner. A couple of his cousins were over with their kids, and there was this little girl there who was like 2 years older than Lexi at the time. So little girl was 10, Lexi was 8. And when they were playing, this little girl just out of the blue says, "Did you know that there's an old woman who lives in the bedroom upstairs?" And at the time, she thought it was creepy, but she just kind of brushed it off, thinking that the little girl was just trying to scare her. A couple days later, her mom is walking up the stairs to use the bathroom, and Lexi just tells her mom, "Hey," little girl's name, said that there is a woman who lives in the bedroom upstairs. Her mom kind of turns around and is like, "Which bedroom?" So Lexi walks upstairs, gets to the door, and goes to look in and points and says, "This one." And as she does, she did in fact see a woman standing there, very pale, black hair, and a long nightgown. Lexi specifically said that it looked like it was from the early 1900s. And obviously upon seeing this, Lexi ran downstairs, and her mom was really confused until they got back to their house, and she explained the entire situation. Lexi's mom's boyfriend was overhearing this conversation and asked her to describe this woman. And when she did, he then said that they had been seeing that same woman there for years. And this is where things take a turn for the worse. Lexi says from that point on, the encounters in her house that were once very small became very amplified and very scary. And she said specifically that many nights she would feel like there was something in the room with her, even more specifically watching her sleep. But again, she brushed it off because she thought she was just scared. Until she was having a friend sleep over, and her friend woke her up in the middle of the night to specifically tell Lexi that she had seen a woman looking at her from over the footboard, just like this. And Lexi thought it was a joke until her friend described the exact same woman she had been seeing. And I guess things get even worse, because after this incident, Lexi's mom begins telling her that she has been seeing her walk around the house when she's not home. She can hear Lexi talking when she's not home. And Lexi had been seeing this woman in mirrors, like when she's brushing her teeth, for example. And on top of this, and what I think is the scariest, Lexi would hear clapping when nobody else was home, and people talking when nobody else is home. And most recently, she tells me that they have 2 dogs, and she brought one of the dogs into her room when she starts to hear the other dog whining and a woman talking to her dog. So immediately she opens the door, tells the other dog, like, Mom's home. The dog does not get up and greet her mom like he would normally do. And when Lexi walks out to go see her mom, she finds out that her mom is not home, her car is not in the driveway, and she is still at work. So again, she goes back in her room, closes the door, clear as day, hears a woman say, "Come here, where are you?" And she can hear the dog go from whining to barking. So immediately, she thinks that someone has broken into her house. She locks her door, gets her softball bat out, and calls her mom to come home immediately. The dog she had with her began barking, and thankfully, her mom only works like 10 minutes away, so she rushed home. But during the time of her mom coming home, Lexi began to hear heavy footsteps coming towards her door. And Lexi specifically states that the energy felt so heavy, and when whatever was outside of the door got to the door, it got eerily silent, and the keychain she has on her door began swaying back and forth. Her mom then got home, found no one in the house, and Lexi believes that the spirit attached itself to her and followed them home and has not left, because that last instance happened like 3 weeks ago. And before I get into anything else, I just have to pause and say I've had to cut a couple of things out because I was hearing banging noises on my wall. And if you don't know, now you do. I either film early in the morning or late at night. I do this because then I don't have to worry about outside noises or my neighbors being awake, etc. So I don't know, and it's furthering the I don't like making videos about demons kind of thing. What really freaked me out was the clapping and obviously the lady looking over the footboard. I don't like that. And I swear I can almost see her face when I'm talking about this. And when I read it the first time, I could see her. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
Oh my god. I can't breathe. Okay, y'all, so here goes a story. So remember how I told y'all I was going to work the day shift? So today I worked the day shift. You know, I'm thinking day shift, no ghosts, no spirits, no nothing. Just day shift stuff. A lot of people there, a lot of services, so on and so forth, right? So I'm sitting up at the front and I had put like a stack of papers on the desk, right? So I'm like, oh, okay. I turn to do something else on my computer. Next thing you know, this whole stack of papers just get knocked off the desk. And I'm like, what the heck? I get up, pick the papers up, put them back where they were, and they get knocked off the desk again. So at this point, I'm like, okay, Casper, give me a sec. Okay, Casper, you're just gonna keep knocking my stuff over. So I put it back on the desk, right? I turn around. 2 seconds later, the papers are flying on the floor again. Flying on the floor again. So I look at the lady on the side of me and I'm like, are you throwing my papers on the floor? And she's like, no, that's George. George is doing that. George is doing that. And I'm like, so who's George? Right? And she's like, oh, it's the daytime ghost spirit that's always up in here, like throwing our papers on the floor, opening doors,
putting his hand underneath, if you go to the bathroom, putting his hand underneath the thing and making all the paper just fly out. So I'm like, so y'all have a daytime spirit and y'all named it. Okay, so the name is George. Got it. Cool. George, I'm here today. I introduced myself, right? So George decided that today was going to be the day to pick on me. So because I never worked daytime, hardly ever, my papers were all over the floor. Then when I got up, so I went and got me some coffee, right? I put my little cup on the desk or whatever to drink my coffee. I'm typing on the computer. Did my coffee get knocked onto the floor? So George thought it was going to be, today he was going to try me. Okay. I got to go pick up this coffee, right? I feel him, but I don't see him, if that makes sense, right? I can feel him. I go into the bathroom. I'm going to go get paper towel because I'm like, this makes absolutely no sense. Put my hand under the thing, whoosh, get my paper. As I'm about to walk out, somebody put their hand back under the thing, and next thing you know, all this paper towel just starts coming. All the paper towel starts coming out. It's coming out so bad, it's going into the trash can at this point, and I'm just like, so I was just like, George, stop! Like, stop! Like, you're making a mess. And he stopped. He stopped doing it, and it just got like super cold in the bathroom. So I'm just like, do we need to have a conversation? So I go back out and I tell the lady, I'm like, listen. She's like, George did it, huh? Yep, he did something with the bathroom. I'm like, yes. Like, y'all don't have control over this daytime guy. Like, he's just a prankster, a jokester. So come to find out, his family, like, when he passed away, his family was like, oh, he always used to play jokes on people. You know, he was a good guy. Da-da-da-da-da. His real name wasn't George when he was living, but that's the name that they gave him, right? So she's like, you know, they told us about him, blah, blah, blah. He's a jokester. He likes to do this, that. He'll mess with you all day. Mind you, when I come in at night, George must be asleep because I have my own little spirits, ghosts that I named a couple of them, but I don't really name them like that because they just be popping up whenever. But I was just like, y'all just let George run rapid up in here, messing up stuff and tearing up stuff. They don't have no control over their daytime spirits, like, at all. And I don't got time for that. So I had to let George know, like, listen, if I'm going to be working days, you can't be doing this to me because it makes it look like I don't know what I'm doing because I'm knocking down papers and spilling coffee and messing up the paper roll. That ain't me. So hopefully the next time I go back, if I ever go back today, George will be on his best behavior because I'm not going to deal with that. So you do get some that are like, that want to play too much, like the nights with the lights, and some that are, I've never ran across a demonic spirit. I don't know. Some people be like, oh, those are demons you're messing with. No, they're not. Some of them are kids. They are not demons. Like, they're not demonic. They're not trying to hurt me. They're not doing anything to, like, bring me into the afterworld with them. They're just one, you know, just lost souls. We'll say that. We'll just call them lost souls. I don't treat them badly. They don't treat me badly. Like, but George, I got something for you.
So to everybody telling they scary stories about spirits and stuff like that, let me tell y'all about the time I came face to face with a mimic from the theater that I volunteer at. So boom, listen, I'm gonna do this all in one take. So I volunteer at a community theater, and that motherfucker haunted. There's something in that basement that does not like me, and I do not like it. I stay away from the basement. I can't stand the basement. I refuse to go into the basement alone. I would never go into the basement alone. Why? Because that thing that is in the basement makes me feel like it wants to hurt me. I don't have no problems with it, and I stay away from it. He has his problems with me. I don't know what they are, but, you know, it might be because I'm black. Anyway, so there's one night we were staying late from rehearsal. There was me, the stage manager, and my two best friends. So I'll name Madison and Jacob. Girl, hey, how y'all doing? I'll tell y'all in the video. Y'all can confirm that this shit happened. Okay, so me, Madison, and the stage manager, and Jacob, we're all having a kiki. We're cleaning the stage. We're sweeping them up and doing shit. We're having a fun time. We're just being. We end up talking about the ghost stories that they tell during the ghost tour, and the story about the lavender lady in the theater. She comes up. Now they tell this story pretty prevalent. prevalent is the word. I don't know, but they tell the story a lot. Now, as the story about the lavender lady going on, the stage manager, something reminded her that she needed something from the basement, and she asked Jacob. She's like, "Hey, Jacob, I need something from the basement. Can you go downstairs to grab it?" Jacob's like, "Hell no, I'm not going down there by myself. What if there's an axe murderer?" That's exactly what he said. I swear to God, that's exactly what he said. And then she was like, "Well, take Marquis." And he was like, "Well, Marquis," I was like, "No, I'm not going down there. You know I don't like that basement. That basement don't like me. I'm not going down them stairs." Long story short, Jacob ended up bribing me with a damn tequila sunrise, and I ended up going anyway. Like a dummy. So we end up going downstairs, and we end up finding what we're looking for. And as we are about to leave the damn prop room, we see this figure standing in the doorway. We both look, and in unison, I swear on my granny ashes, we say, "Ow!" at the same time. Because it was just standing there, solid figure. It dips off, it disappears. We run up the stairs. We both out of breath. We sitting here talking about some, yeah, bitch, we're not going back downstairs. No. They ask what happened. We tell Maddie what happened, and Madison's like, "What are you going to do if it follows you?" I'm like, "I wish this motherfucker would follow me." And that's my problem right there. I sat here and said, "I wish this motherfucker would follow me." Yep, I do too much of this. I need to learn how to stop. So we end up talking our shit, leaving. I end up home. Get home. It's the dead of fucking winter. Julian's at work. My fiance's at work. So I get in the house. First red flag that oh, hell no. See, even talking about this shit scaring me. So I get home. First red flag should have been my fucking bedroom door was open. I don't never leave my bedroom door open. I have a cat that likes to claw stuff up. He's not allowed in here without supervision. Second red flag, he was still in the living room. That's how I know. That's how I should have known something was wrong. Bedroom door was open. My cat was still in the living room. He wasn't in my bedroom. That should have been the first red flag. So I hear my fiance's voice come out of my bedroom. And he's like, "Hey, babe, how are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, babe, I'm doing good. I'm going to come give you a kiss, but I got to use the bathroom first." I go to the bathroom first, and it's still talking to me. The voice is still talking to me. I don't see where the voice is coming from, but I know it's coming from my bedroom. So I'm in the bedroom, and I'm talking. He's talking. It's talking. Whatever the fuck it goes by. It's still having a conversation with me. We're literally, I'm like enthralled in this conversation, having a full intellectual conversation, explaining my day, how it went. I even told him about the mishap one of my residents had. And I kid you not, as I crack the bathroom door open, because like I can't hear because it starts to get a little muffled. So I'm like, "Babe, I'm going to crack the bedroom door. Hold on, say that again." I open the bathroom door just a little bit. And I'm so deep in my phone on Royal Match. I'm not trying to plug them, I swear to God. I'm playing the little Royal Match game, and I swear to God, I see the door open a little bit more than how I had it. And as I'm like talking, I see something like stand in the doorway. And I'm thinking that my fiance came to be fucking be a fucking weirdo, because like we play like that. So I'm thinking it's him. But I swear to God on my granny ashes, when I looked up, this creature, this being, this entity, whatever you want to call it, when I looked up, it had my fiance's face. But the only difference about my fiance that it didn't it had red and gold eyes. I swear on my granny ashes, bro, on my altar to Aphrodite, it had red and gold eyes, and it was looking at me. I couldn't do shit but scream. I legitimately screamed. Like it was a full final girl scream. Like it was just. It was bad. Like it was terrifying. Like I felt like my heart fell out of my ass. Like it was terrifying. And as like I scream, it runs. And then my fiance just so happens to come in, and he's like running towards me because like he hears me screaming. He thinks something's wrong. He's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And I'm like, that was not you? Was that not you? Oh my God. Was that not you? And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Bro, there was something in the house, man. There was something in the house." Girl, I finished up using the bathroom. I had him check the house to make sure that I was not alone, like to make sure like it was gone. I called Madison after that to have her come to cleanse my house. I was so like I couldn't even focus on doing it myself. I had Madison come to my house and cleanse it, and I will tag her in the video, and she will literally confirm that this has happened. Like I was like, and even just thinking about it, I'm like, just thinking about it, and then like, it was like what really was like the scariest part about it was. It wasn't like a shadow, a masked shadow. It was like a solid human being, like if you could see me. Like that's what it was. And I did not sleep that night. Like I remember I didn't sleep that night. I ain't go, not for legal reasons, this is a joke, but I took one of Juju's Adderalls to go to work the next morning because I did not go to sleep. Like it was so that was the most terrifying shit I have ever been through. But yeah, that's my scary story. That's my story with the paranormal. But I have a couple more. I could tell y'all about the time I had a dream that I danced with a demon.
This spooky story submission is actually so terrifying that it led to the person who was telling me the story to end up in the hospital because of this. So for the story, we're going to call her Danielle, and I'm going to tag her below. We're calling her Danielle because that's what her childhood friends and her family used to call her. So until Danielle was about 14 or 15 years old, she lived on 78 acres of land. She said that in that 78 acres of land, only about 3 other people lived on that land. So it was a pretty secluded area, and Danielle really liked to play outside. That was her favorite thing to do. She loved watching the deers, the rabbits, but her favorite was climbing trees. Something that really bothered her though is that her mother would never let her play outside after dark, and we're talking like not even after the sunset, as the sun started setting. She didn't like this, but she obviously obeyed it because it was her mother, and so she had to. Until one day, her mother decides that she is going to go out to a friend's house, and Danielle doesn't want to go with her. But if Danielle doesn't go with her, it means that she's going to be left alone. Her and her mother decide that this is okay and that Danielle is old enough to handle this, so she stays home alone, and her mom leaves at about 3 p.m. Danielle decides that she's going to go outside and she's going to play in the woods. She said that she was outside climbing trees when she felt this overwhelming feeling of being watched. It was overwhelming, and it felt like it was coming from above her. But she keeps looking up, and she's not seeing anything, so she's thinking that maybe her mind's just playing tricks on her, and she kind of shrugs it off. At some point, it starts to get dark, and she knows that she's supposed to go home, but she doesn't want to go home, and she's home alone, so she can do what she wants. So she decides that she's going to stay outside. At around 7:30 p.m., when the sun had already set, she starts hearing a noise, and it's her mother calling her name. She's calling for her to come home. So Danielle is like, oh crap, I gotta get home. So she starts walking home, but she still has this overwhelming feeling of being watched. When all of a sudden, she starts hearing twigs and leaves snapping behind her. So she looks behind her, but she doesn't see anything. She finally gets home, and she realizes that her mom is not home. So while she's outside, she calls her mom, and she's like, Mom, were you home? Like, I just heard you calling my name. And her mom was like, I have not been home this entire time. I'm still at my friend's house. She said this really freaked her out, and she decided to turn around and look in the woods, and she looked over, and she sees a dark figure standing outside in the woods. This freaks her out, so she runs inside, she slams the door, and she deadbolts it shut. She then goes over to the window, and she looks outside of her blinds to see if it's still there, and of course it is not there. She again decides that she's going to shrug this off. Maybe her eyes are just playing tricks on her, and she decides to make dinner. This feeling of being watched, this overwhelming feeling, follows her until the morning. And she said that she didn't feel like she was being watched by one thing, she felt like she was being watched by like several things. She decides to go to her camera because they have cameras in the house, and there's a new video popped up, and I'm assuming that they were motion censored. She didn't say in the email, but she did say that there was a new video, so she looks at it and she doesn't see anything, but she hears this tapping sound on their front door. It's important to note right now that their front door is a big metal door that her mom had put in when they very first moved in. Nothing is on the camera, she cannot see anything, so she decides that she's going to go outside and she's going to look at the door. Outside on the door, there are huge claw marks on this metal big door. She said that she then realized that this could not have been an animal, because if it was an animal, number one, why is it trying to get into her house? And number two, how could it make these claw marks on this big metal door her mom had installed? So this really freaked her out, so I think her way of just coping with things was just shrugging it off. So she does just that, and she goes out in the woods again, and around 7:50 p.m. she's playing in the tree, climbing it again, and she gets that overwhelming feeling again. This feeling again is feeling like it's coming from above. So she decides to look above her again, and what she saw was terrifying. She said that she looked up, and when she looked up, she saw the most figure she had ever seen in her life looking at her. Not only was it looking at her, but it was calling her name, her real name, not Danielle, her real name. But not only was it calling her name, it was in her mother's voice again. Danielle is absolutely terrified at this, and she starts bolting home. And the entire time she's running home, she can hear this thing running after her. She calls her mother on her way home and she was absolutely bawling her eyes out. Her mom gets home and she assures her that it's nothing and that everything is going to be okay and that it's not a big deal and that she was probably just seeing things. Danielle did say that this experience was so distraught to her and scared her so badly that she actually ended up being hospitalized for 2 or 3 months because of it. She said she couldn't eat, sleep, drink, nothing. The crazy thing about this is that this is not even the only thing that happened to Danielle. Something else happened to her that even traumatized her further. This is getting really long, so I'm gonna have to make a part 2 on it. If you guys want to hear that second part, that partly also contributed to her being in the hospital, then drop it in the comments and I will make a part 2 and tell you guys that story. That story is even scarier. So what do you guys think of this? What do you guys think this was? Like, this terrified her so much that she's still in therapy to this day. And the second thing that happened to her definitely didn't help at all. So drop in the comments for part 2. Also, if you guys have anything to say to her or anything to like help her feel better, please also drop that in the comments. She could use all the love and support that she could get right now. She is going to see it. I am going to tag her. Thank you so much for your submission, Danielle. And thank you for letting me tag you. You are the first person that has let me tag you, so I appreciate that. And if you guys want to send me your true scary stories, then there's an email in my bio. Just go ahead and email me there and I will come on here and I will tell your story. You do not have to be tagged if you do not want to. My name is Kaisa. I tell you scary stories that are true every single night. So if you like that, then hit that follow button, engage from the bottom up, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much and have a spooky night.
This is reason number 1 as to why you should always be very careful when inviting anyone into your home, even family. So for those of you guys who follow me on here, you already know that my father and I don't have the best relationship. Recently, I found out that he had a baby, so I reached out. We ended up reuniting. I met the baby and decided to invite them over to my house for dinner. Mind you, my home is extremely protected. So if anybody comes in with any type of negativity around them, they're not going to feel well. So he comes over. The minute he walks in, he starts to become ill. He said he felt like he was gonna faint, like he didn't know what was going on. They ended up cutting their visit short and practically rushed out of the door. I didn't think much of it and just decided to go on with my day. The next day, which was on Sunday, I woke up in the worst possible mood. I couldn't understand why I was in such a bad mood. I had absolutely no reason to feel so angry, but something was just really bothering me. I decided to take the kids to go watch the new Spider-Man to kind of get my mind off of it. Once I left the house, I realized that I no longer felt like that anger. Like, it was gone and I felt fine. But the minute we went back home, I started to feel angry again. Decided to ignore it. I don't know why I keep ignoring things. Decided to ignore it, went about my day. That Monday I wake up, when I go downstairs, I notice that the house is dark. Like, there's this darkness around the house. My house is extremely light. My shades are always open. I don't like darkness. But again, busy with work, I kind of just get ready and go about my day. When I get home later on that day, the house has this weird, like, rotting smell. My kids can't smell it, but I can smell it and it's bothering me. So I go around cleaning the house. I'm like bleaching, I'm scrubbing, I'm mopping. I'm like, where's that smell coming from? I even like deep clean the trash can, like in the inside, thinking maybe something spilled in there. I couldn't get the smell from like out of my nose. That night I go to bed and I end up waking up at exactly 3 a.m. So I'm like, fun, this is fun. I'm like getting chills even thinking about it. My mouth is so freaking dry. I go downstairs to get something to drink. When I go downstairs, I notice that the basement door is open. I never leave that door open. So I shut it, grabbed the water, and went back to my room. The minute I lay down, I'm paralyzed. This thing paralyzes me, and it shows itself. I'm like fighting back again. I'm not afraid of any of this stuff because I've been dealing with this stuff my whole life. So I'm pretty much laughing at it, telling it that it has no power and needs to leave. I start to pray, and it's continuing to like hold me down. At one point, I'm able to break free and I like overpower this thing. I have one of those Stanley cups, the dupe, not the real one. I'm not spending $40 on a cup. Next to my nightstand, and I started to hit it in the head with it. Once I did this, it went away. I say my prayers and go to sleep. I wake up at about 6 a.m. and decide to go downstairs to get my coffee. When I go downstairs into the kitchen, I hear what sounds like something like fumbling in the basement, like something's falling over in the basement. And then I look and realize that the basement door is open.
This is one of the scariest stories I've ever read. It was posted 10 years ago on Reddit by an account called A Writer Named Williams. It was on the subreddit called Let's Not Meet. The story is called Poker Face. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this very scary story. This happened in Antioch, California. It was around 2 a.m. I was at a friend's house, safe and warm, sheltered suburbia. We were having a lot to drink, chit-chatting, enjoying ourselves, of course. When you're having fun, time hits the fast-forward button, and those few minutes turn into an hour. I had too much to drink. My friend has a bit of an abrupt bedtime, so I had to dodge out early, still intoxicated. I felt too shameful thinking I'd be asking too much to stay in his house to sleep off the drunkenness. I suppose he was either too rude or too drunk to consider it himself. Whatever. Sometimes a little inconvenience makes you appreciate everything else. I needed about another hour or so to sober up and drive back. As fast as time passed during my stay, it decided to drastically slow down as soon as I stepped out of his house. It was a cul-de-sac area, a concrete jungle with the stem of the street breaking into a fork. Alongside the road, my car was parked. The only street light that worked was in the middle of the cul-de-sac circle, about 80 yards away. I stumbled towards my car, produced my keys, and felt the metal line up. Opened my door and shifted to the back seat. Because this was a dark, strange, and unfamiliar neighborhood, I took the leftover newspapers and a sweater in my back seat to cover myself up. I was a little scared. I wanted to camouflage myself and not just be some guy awkwardly sitting in his car, waiting for time to pass in order to drive home. I couldn't fall asleep. The uncomfortable feeling of a cheap backseat bed enshrouded in darkness didn't make the chance of slumber easier. It felt too ominous, and of course my mind began to wonder. I thought of worst-case scenarios, like how the police would shine their lights on me through the window, or a drunk driver hitting my car, and... Wait. In the distance, about 100 yards away, I hear footsteps approaching. The gravel scuffed with each step forward, growing in proximity but periodically taking stops. I wondered why until it made sense in my mind. Whoever it was probably looking through cars carefully, with the intent to steal one. I couldn't recall how many cars were on the block, but I counted 3 full stops until he was at my window, breathing. I froze. There was no more than 1 foot between us. The car encapsulated me as I lay hidden beneath backseat clutter, forming myself into an object, trying my hardest to be unnoticeable, unmoving, and simply not there. "I see you," said a 40-plus-year-old man in a perverse baby talk. I imagine when you were playing hide and seek and one of your friends tricks you into coming out, he said it in that tone of voice, as if baiting me, like he was questioning whether the clutter in the back seat was just clutter or a person. I didn't want to move or check the window. I remained clutter. Give me an Academy Award. My body reacted by minimizing my breathing so much that I felt paralyzed. I dare not to look. My eyes fixated on the back of the passenger seat. I didn't blink, I didn't move, I didn't breathe. My heart was pounding so hard it shook my body with each throb. He circled around the car. My ears didn't fail me. I heard the steps. I felt like I was part of the car. I could feel him touching the trunk as he carefully pressed down on it, as if to test the alarm, as if to test me. I was in the middle of fight or flight. I couldn't do either without elevating danger. I was frozen and hoping to God he was bluffing. He circled the car again. The door handle to my right jiggled. He was pulling it multiple times. "I see you." Same tone, but more agitated and stressed, more convinced that he was trying to make that clutter move, revealing itself to be one of his expectations that it was me. My muscles tensed like a cow before slaughter. That had to be metal against glass. "Take a penny right now and tap your window." A crowbar, a knife, a rock, a gun. My eyes fixated on the seat in front of me, never averting my gaze like he was. I was covered enough to where I couldn't see beyond the seat in front of me. I know I couldn't see him, but I can feel his eyes resting on top of me.
"My name is Poker Face. What's your name?"
The voice changed in a lower, demented, and serious tone. My mind forced a visual. It wasn't anything human. I already accepted my death. I was ready to be shot in the head, ready to take a life-changing bullet, multiple knife wounds. Just make the sleep bearable, not excruciating, as you drain me of life. I wouldn't know how to react. My thoughts grew dimmer. I imagined my friend waking up the next morning after a calm night of safe and sound sleep, only to discover my mutilated, defiled, and bloody body hanging outside of my car door. It was then I heard nothing but my own heart. What was this person doing now? Just staring at me in the middle of the night, talking to me, or a messy pile in the back seat? Time froze. The footsteps were being swallowed in the distance. Thank God he left. I waited another hour until the sun showed hints of itself. I jumped in my front seat and bolted out of there, wide-eyed and sober. And that's the end of the story.
Cette histoire paranormale, elle est tellement étrange. La femme qui nous raconte cette histoire, elle s'appelle Anna, c'est sur TikTok directement, je la mettrai en bio. Enfin, je vais la taguer en description de la vidéo, vous avez compris. Si vous me voyez regarder devant moi, c'est normal, j'ai pris des notes. Anna commence par nous dire qu'il lui a fallu beaucoup de temps avant de pouvoir raconter cette histoire parce que selon elle, c'est l'une des choses les plus effrayantes voire traumatisantes qui lui soit jamais arrivée. Donc tout a commencé quand elle et son mari, ils ont emménagé dans leur première maison. Elle nous explique que très vite, des choses étranges ont commencé à se produire, mais il a fallu environ 2 ans pour que tout bascule. La première chose qu'elle a remarqué, c'était dans la cuisine. Tous les matins, en se réveillant, elle constatait que malgré le fait d'avoir soigneusement rangé toutes les chaises qui se trouvaient dans la salle à manger, elle retrouvait toujours une chaise, la même, qui faisait partie de toutes les chaises qui étaient normalement autour de la table. Elle retrouvait du coup toujours la même chaise déplacée. Elle était donc sortie de la table et tournée vers le couloir. Et ce couloir-là, il menait à toutes les chambres de la maison. Elle explique que ça a duré un certain temps jusqu'à ce qu'elle se rende compte qu'en fait ce n'était pas son mari qui faisait ça. Parce que oui, elle de base, elle ramenait tout à une certaine logique. Donc elle, sans trop y réfléchir, elle se disait juste que c'était son mari. Sauf qu'en parlant avec lui au bout d'un moment, parce qu'elle trouvait ça quand même bizarre, ils se rendent compte que l'un comme l'autre, ils s'étaient jeté la faute dessus. Son mari croyait que c'était elle et elle croyait que c'était son mari. Alors que non, c'était aucun des deux. Et là, ça a commencé à me faire peur. Parce qu'elle explique que la nuit, quand elle allait dans ce couloir pour aller dans la cuisine par exemple, elle voyait cette chaise donc tournée vers elle et des fois, dans le reflet d'une des fenêtres, elle voyait la silhouette d'un homme. Et cet homme, c'était un vieil homme qui avait l'air d'être assis sur cette chaise. Donc elle, peut-être qu'elle mettait ça sur le fait qu'elle était fatiguée, elle se formalisait pas dessus. Juste limite, elle passait à autre chose, peut-être qu'elle se disait que c'était le soir et que c'était plus son imagination qu'autre chose, mais ça lui arrivait très souvent de voir ça. Sauf qu'un soir, elle ne peut pas le nier, elle était en train de dormir puis elle s'est réveillée. Enfin, elle explique qu'elle était semi-éveillée et qu'elle voit une ombre très grande au-dessus de son mari qui le regarde. Elle explique que cette ombre, elle est vraiment très grande, c'est-à-dire environ 2,50 m de haut. Très mince et encore une fois, penchée au-dessus de son mari. Elle pense que c'est une paralysie du sommeil qu'elle a faite, étant semi-éveillée, etc. Et en plus, son mari dormait, donc elle se dit juste, c'était une paralysie du sommeil sûrement. Le lendemain matin, elle lui raconte ce qu'elle a vu. Elle lui dit, et je cite, « J'ai eu la vision la plus folle. Je ne veux pas t'effrayer, mais il y avait quelque chose au-dessus de toi. » Et là, son mari, il s'arrête, il la regarde, il lui dit, « Attends une seconde. Moi-même, j'ai rêvé, la nuit dernière du coup, qu'au beau milieu de la nuit, quand il a ouvert les yeux, il a vu une figure totalement noire qui le fixait. » Là, Anna, elle explique que la coïncidence, elle est énorme, quoi. C'est-à-dire qu'elle est complètement troublée. Quelques mois plus tard, ils étaient assis dans leur salon. Elle explique à ce moment-là que la maison, elle date des années 60 et elle possédait une grande baie vitrée donnant sur leur terrain. Et à ce que j'ai compris, le terrain, il a un énorme jardin devant cette baie vitrée. Et là, elle explique qu'ils entendent des griffures contre la vitre extérieure. Sauf que c'était pas des griffures d'un petit animal et c'était pas non plus les griffures, par exemple, d'un raton laveur. Ils expliquent que c'est pas du tout commun là où ils habitent. Et en plus, même si c'était un animal, ils l'auraient vu directement parce qu'encore une fois, la baie vitrée, elle est grande. Bref, impossible qu'un animal se soit caché et soit en train de griffer. Eux, ils commencent à avoir un peu un malaise, donc ils décident de se lever et d'aller dans leur chambre. Et à peine arrivés dans leur lit et allongés, ils entendent un fracas énorme qui retentit. Le bruit était tellement un bruit sourd qu'ils pensent que c'est leurs 2 immenses bibliothèques, hautes de plus de 2,50 m, qui s'étaient effondrées. C'était des bibliothèques qui étaient pleines d'énormes livres, et des livres qu'ils collectionnaient, comme par exemple National Geographic, etc. Bref, ce sont des livres très épais. Là, Anna, elle nous explique qu'elle a 2 chats, et que avec ce fracas, et elle sait pas ce qui s'est passé exactement, mais ils ont 2 chats, et ces 2 chats, ils étaient extrêmement paniqués, et ils ont tout simplement couru jusqu'à leur lit. Et là, Anna et son mari se disent, en fait, et s'il y avait un intrus dans la maison? À la fin, ils prennent leur courage à 2 mains, ils prennent ce qu'ils ont un peu sous la main pour se défendre au cas où, mais quand ils sortent pour vérifier, il y a rien. Rien n'avait bougé, aucune étagère n'était tombée. Pourtant, ils savaient que c'était pas une illusion, encore une fois, les chats, ils ont couru, ils étaient extrêmement apeurés. Tellement apeurés qu'encore une fois, ils ont sauté sur le lit. À la fin, ils se regardent dans le blanc des yeux, ils peuvent absolument rien y faire, rien n'a bougé. Quelques temps passent et on apprend qu'en fait, pendant que tout ça arrivait, Anna, elle était enceinte, donc elle finit par donner naissance à son bébé. Et même si elle est très occupée étant fraîchement maman, elle explique que les phénomènes étranges ont continué. Donc oui, on a déjà eu les animaux qui ont fait des choses bizarres, mais maintenant on va voir un bébé. Elle explique donc qu'un jour, elle avait sa fille sur ses genoux et elle était en train de la filmer, et le bébé fixait quelque chose derrière elle. Le bébé donc fixait quelque chose, était en train en plus de rigoler et semblait jouer avec une présence invisible. Donc là, Anna, elle regarde un peu son bébé, elle se dit ah ok, ben c'est un enfant quoi. Peut-être qu'il a quelque chose d'imaginaire, elle sait pas. Et en regardant sur les rushs de la caméra, du coup, enfin de la vidéo, elle distingue très clairement un mouvement blanc en arrière-plan. Au bout d'un moment, c'est limite si Anna, elle est pas habituée, entre guillemets. Puis, un mois plus tard, une nuit, elle berçait son enfant dans sa chambre. Encore une fois, elle explique qu'elle est parfaitement éveillée, lucide, etc. Et en levant les yeux vers le couloir, elle a vu, comme toujours, la chaise tourner vers elle. Parce que oui, ce phénomène ne s'est pas arrêté. Mais cette fois, ce n'était pas juste une chaise. Là, elle explique qu'il y avait une silhouette terrifiante qui s'y trouvait. Elle explique que ce qu'elle a vu, c'était vraiment, ça avait une très mauvaise aura, elle avait un très mauvais feeling, et juste, encore une fois, c'était terrifiant. Elle appelle même ça un démon. Ses mots sont que c'était un démon immense, cornu, avec des sabots. Là, Anna, elle a manqué limite un battement de cœur tellement elle était terrifiée. Et elle explique qu'elle a directement commencé à prier. Bien sûr, c'était très très tard le soir. Donc Anna, là, elle est terrifiée, elle ne sait pas quoi faire, elle sait très bien qu'elle peut pas aller à la police ni quoi que ce soit, et que là, en fait, elle ne se l'imagine pas. Il y a tellement de coïncidences qu'à la fin, ça ne peut plus être des coïncidences. Et surtout qu'elle n'est pas la seule à le voir. Elle finit donc par prendre sa fille et se rend dans une église catholique. Là, elle demande une bénédiction, elle prend une croix et elle remplit une bouteille entière d'eau bénite. Elle a accroché une croix bénie à l'entrée de sa maison et a fait venir une amie catholique pour bénir chaque pièce. Elle dit aussi avoir aspergé les murs d'eau bénite, prié dans toutes les pièces et même baigné sa fille dans l'eau bénite. Chaque soir, avant de dormir, elle bénissait son mari, son enfant, elle-même ainsi que chaque porte de la maison. Et à partir de ce moment-là, plus rien ne s'est produit. Les histoires avec cette chaise qui se tournait vers le couloir où étaient toutes les chambres, ça s'est arrêté. Les silhouettes bizarres aussi. Les griffures sur la baie vitrée, bref tout ça, stop. Et elle raconte que, encore une fois, c'est l'expérience qui l'a le plus terrifiée et traumatisée. Tout simplement parce qu'il n'y a aucune logique derrière. C'est pas expliqué scientifiquement. Et jusqu'à aujourd'hui, elle garde toujours une croix bénite avec elle. Suspendue à l'entrée menant aux chambres, peu importe